I'm Duane the Great Writer, and this is episode 4 of the Real Wake Up Now. We've done 3 previous episodes where I have provided a lot of information about myself, the books I've written, the Worldwide Educators, the wonderful Worldwide Educators, some of the projects that we're doing. And so this episode here, we're going to go over the ideas of agreement, and for people to have a better understanding in this world and what is taking place here. No matter what is created with anything, even if it's just creating it for ourselves, it's that we decide something. At first comes through our imagination, and we think it's our mind, but it's really not. It really comes from our real awareness that we're not quite recognizing. Most people do not recognize, which is understandable, because most people do not have the recognition or the understanding or the education about the 5 bodies they have. Looking at themselves here, they mainly see the physical body only, and then at night when they're having their so-called dream experiences or fantasy worlds, they're in another body, but they don't realize that they have other bodies that they're having experiences in besides the physical body. So for the most part, that dream area is not agreed to, is it? And it's not taught in the so-called one-dimensional militarized educational system that we see on the earth. And as you listen to this, as the audience out there listens to this, you will get a better understanding of what you're agreeing to consciously and unconsciously, and mainly the public, the masses, how they've been trained and I would say conditioned to a certain point to where they basically obey the systems that have created these positions for them, so they're controlled and they are supporters. So again, this is all about agreement. People agree. And so in the world, from time to time, we see these things called revolutions or protestings or demonstration, because all of a sudden people are not agreeing to what the system is creating. And again, we've been brought up in a world to where we've been educated, conditioned, and basically mesmerized and marketed into agreeing with whatever the system creates. In other words, those that control the system, the very few that control it. And this is okay. This is part of the process of waking up whenever we do wake up, but usually we go through many lifetimes of agreeing with the systems until we reach a certain point where we've gained enough experience through thousands upon thousands of lifetimes in different embodiments and different situations and relationships of all these agreements, to where we start to look for something else. We start to look for a bigger picture, because we're within ourselves. We really recognize we're really tired of going through the same situation lifetime after lifetime and seemingly realistically getting nowhere, even though it seems like we are. But realistically, no, you're still in creation. You're just going through the same ideas that appear differently. So again, this is all based upon agreement, and most people don't consciously recognize this. So a very good example of this is the monetary system that is a mechanism in the world. It's a mechanical mechanism that's been created. Now, if we go back a couple hundred years, and it still exists with the indigenous people of the world, there's many indigenous people all over the world, from the Aborigines to the Amazon people to different parts of the world. They don't have a monetary system. They don't use money as a means of exchange. So this was all created and invented at a certain point. Mainly coming, we'll just use Europe and the old kings and queens as an example, and it started off with gold and silver, of course, was manufactured into coins, and eventually the paper money came to be, simply because it was a lot easier carrying the paper money instead of all these coins and this gold, because it gets pretty heavy And when you're just when people see you bent over with bags of gold and that, somebody wants to take it when you're not looking. So again, plus carrying it around, it becomes pretty cumbersome. So eventually the paper money was created, and this was created by the educated, we'll say the bankers, educated people, the business world, because they could see that, gold and silver were limited because you got to mine this, you've got to, you've got to melt it down, you've got to go through all this process to eventually get it to that little coin, to where the paper money, all they have to do is create the printing press, and voila, you can print as much as you want, and it's based upon agreement. And this is what people don't see. They have classes in college, as an example, on economics and things related to the business world, whatever they're called. And these relate to the so-called mechanics and the economics of the system, the monetary system, how all this works. Well, they've presented it in a fashion where it's very, very complicated, because they really don't want people to see the real workings of the monetary system as an example of agreement. But it's very, very simple. They simply have, positioned themselves with the legal system that they've invented. This all came from Europe. The lawyers and all this, the judges, whatever, this all came from Europe and eventually came into the United States. The legal system we have is still with Europe. Most people don't realize that. That's the Esquire, the ESQ that you see after the lawyer's name. That's all from Europe. That's European, and that's controlled by the monarchy over there. Okay, most people don't realize that. Actually, the entire United States is controlled by these people. So there's a lot more to learn. And as this monetary system has been created, so-called officially, with the self-established governments of the world, they've created the monetary system, and they've gotten people to agree. Now, if people look at, if a person looks at the history of the United States as an example, they'll see that the United States, through its creation, went through a process of different types of currency. And prior to the Constitution that was written, as an example, 1776 or around there, whatever it is, it took them a while to figure that out, because all they had is, feathers and ink, feather pens and ink at the time, okay? And they did have some printing presses. But, getting up to that point to where they created that, there was called the continental dollars, as an example. And eventually, people stopped agreeing with these things. In other words, like the price of gold. What is the real price of gold? It's manipulated, but again, the certain few manipulate the price of gold, and they get the agreement with everybody else in the world because the mechanics are already set into motion. So it's very easy for them to up the price of gold or down the price of gold. And so people think, well, it's buying and selling, but it's really not. It's manipulation, just like the stock market. It's all manipulated. It's not about who buys what or et cetera. It's all manipulated. And just like the voting system, it's all manipulated. It doesn't matter who votes. It's all manipulated, and it's according to agreement. And so as the money in those days, the continental dollars, pretty soon people were carrying wheelbarrows full of this. But they were agreeing to the other monetary systems that had already been implemented, like the British or the French or whatever. They were more so, I would say, the British or what have you. People were exchanging different types of currency in the United States in the early days, and for the most part, you don't learn this in school. You have to research this. And there were different banknotes, and actually Benjamin Franklin had notes at the time that were called script, and he had actually set it up in a particular way, if I get this right. But the idea is that it was to where there was no debt for the government, etc. But then the real bankers came in, and they said if you don't implement our system, we're going to create a war. So they created the Revolutionary War, because they want the way they can control the system is to create debt. If it's a debt-free system where everybody gets to do what they want, then they don't have control of it. So they create situations to where there is debt, and this is what we have today as the so-called national debt, which there's actually no such thing as, because all of this system was created out of nothing. But what sustains the system, and it's fine, the creation of it is all fine, it's simply creation. But what sustains it is the agreement. That's what keeps it going. And so when the real guides asked me to, extend upon what Paul Twitchell did with his original creation into what is now the new presentation, the new nowness of the all is, I did not look for agreement from anybody. I just said, yes, I'll do it. This is a real risk taker position. I had agreed to it with myself. It's about agreement. And now we have people all over the world that are waking up and seeing, singing and seeing what the new you does, the reality of it, and how it makes the real connection with the real guides. And the true reality of life is the all is beyond creation itself. And so again, this is an agreement. And as long as a person agrees to this reality in their life, then it becomes so. But as soon as they use their literal mind and they don't agree, then they stay in creation. So again, it's what you agree to. And so for the most part, most people do not see what they agree to. They do not see all the restrictions that they agree to. As we look out at the systems that have been created on the earth, everything on the earth is fine. Good, bad, or indifferent, it's all fine. It's taking place because people have decided to do it. And yes, we look at the world, we see the pollution, the poisoning, the destruction, the chemtrails, the vaccines, the microwaves. We don't like it. But you look at all the people that do agree to it. They will say they don't like it. That's an attitude. But they will realistically agree to it and support it by the very fact of what they're doing. So the reason that I'm bringing this out realistically is that as a person wakes up to what they're agreeing to, they start to see that they've been agreeing to their own demise for lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. It's all about agreement. It's not about belief. It's not about being saved. It's not about Jesus will return or the gods will return and save the earth or whatever, because everybody has agreed to destroy the earth, basically. There's a huge agreement, a huge group consciousness here that's very active to do this, even though they are thinking in their minds that they want the earth to be okay, but at the same time they're destroying it. And most people don't see that just by the very fact that they go out and drive their car every day, that they're agreeing to poisoning the world, because actually anybody can put their car on water right now. It's been around for 100 years, even before petroleum was used. But petroleum is another control factor, is what it is. And this is what the public has not woken up to. Basically, everything that's implemented in the system from the created systems is a control factor to control people here, to human farming. And for the most part, most people are in agreement to that. They just think in their minds, well, everybody else does it, so I'll do it too. And you can do that. And so what takes place is reincarnation and karma. You will continually project a future for yourself because you're agreeing to, once this body runs out, your real awareness will go through a new set of bodies, but still carry the experiences from past lives. This becomes your unseen karmic baggage that reflects, and you continually agree to it, even though you consciously do not agree to it. This becomes the bigger factor. So the masses, the world, is actually controlled subliminally more than it is on a conscious level. Now, certain people are rebelling and demonstrating on a conscious level, but at the same time, they're agreeing to be held unconsciously. So it is a recognition of all these various bodies into the real awareness, into the real universes. So this is the first step that I'm bringing out here. And then so from this, I'm going to take some questions, or somebody's going to share some experience. We have a group of the worldwide educators here with us, so they're going to share their ideas and views basically along the lines of agreement. So go ahead, Chris, who's first?
Hi. This is a simple question, and probably for us here it's kind of obvious, but I thought I'd ask it anyway. Duane, you briefly talked about the debt figures, and in the United States, they publish them regularly. They take a look at the supposed debt of the United States, and then they determine how much each person would have to pay. And for me, whenever I've seen that over the years, my first thought was, well, I don't agree to that. I didn't create that debt. Why am I being held responsible for it? So my question is, when they publish a figure like that and they suggest that out to 350 million people, and the people don't say, well, wait a minute, why am I responsible for that? Is that then the agreement to it?
You're asking about the debt that's been created, and it's almost like, why would they do this, or why would they say this when realistically you have nothing to do with it? That's the idea, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And that's very good. Hear the kids in the background. That's cute. Yeah, and this is exactly it. When, see, most people are afraid. Fear is the bigger thing. Fear is the binder in this world. It really is. And it's the huge influence of this world. And fear is used to get agreement. It's used all the time in so many ways. We see it in commercials all the time. Oh, if you don't take this pill, this could happen or whatever. So you want to take this pill, or you want to do this, or you want to do that. Oh, you should have car insurance. You want to be safe. You see, it's all about fear. These are fear tactics. They actually are. Again, did the Indians have car insurance? But of course they didn't have cars, but we do today. And so, yes, certain things make sense. So we go back to the debt idea. Yes, this is very, very real, and that is, it is not your debt. They created the system. They use the system. It's kind of like, it's kind of like you as the parent, you give your child a credit card. And then it's like, here, sweetie, go out and, just buy your meals and take care of yourself. Well, the child doesn't only buy their meals, they start charging everything that you don't know about until you get the bill, you see. And so this is what the agencies have done. They're very tricky. This is all deception, 100% pure deception. And they plan all this purposely to control the masses. But the masses buy it. They basically buy the idea. And there's people, I see it all the time, who want to try and pay off the national debt. Well, they don't want it paid off. They want the debt there because it creates fear, it creates guilt, it creates all these things that are binders so that the world can be controlled by them. And the debt is all fake, because when you go back to the original source of the monetary system, it's created out of nothing. It really is. And today it's just computer money. All the the world bankers or the controllers, the one world order, the cabal, whatever, all they have to do is put, press a few buttons in a computer, send it out to the banks. They got money. You see, it's all computerized money. And so where is the debt according to this make-believe monetary system? Well, it doesn't take much to add 2 and 2, does it? You don't have to be a rocket science. But you see, they've created the idea for the public that, oh, this is a really complicated system and very few people really understand the economics of it. Well, aside from those ideas and all these things, all this fluff and all this schmoozing over that they give the public and all these political speeches, you put all that aside, you pull back the curtain and you see what it is. A little guy on a computer in some room, some dark room, punching in the numbers. That's all it is. And so again, where is the debt? There's no such thing. And actually, it's like they have the big credit card, and just like the bailout of '08, when the new president came in, that was takeovers. They create these debts, and they throw it on the public as guilt and fear, and they create these debts as takeovers for themselves because they get agreement from the public that they can. And the public doesn't see this, how they're agreeing to this, because they're not agreeing to it. you see? And it's not about rebelling or protesting. It's just about agreement. So in other words, anyone can start a new position like we are that makes sense and is wonderful and works for everybody equally. Yeah, it's not that hard, really. It's not rocket science. But these people that want to control the world, that are controlling the world, that have for the longest time, they come under different labels and guises. If it's from the Jesuits to the Illuminati to the Masons to the One World Order to the Zionists to whatever it is, Cabal, whatever. It really doesn't matter. These are just labels. It's basically the same people with the same ideas controlling others because realistically, they are more afraid than everybody else. They're so afraid that somebody's going to get something that they're not. And so were the Indians like this? Did they have titles to their land? Were they afraid? Were they constantly on guard that someone else was going to take the land? Well, they knew the land belonged to the earth. It belonged to everybody. And when the white man came over to the so-called New America, they welcomed the white man. But then the white man took over, stole their gold, did all these things, and then branded them as savages because it's about control. And all these were European ideas originally from the original invaders of the earth, the reptilians. And these people are shapeshifters and reptilians for the most part. This is what they are. They're warlords, just like in the Star Trek series, like the Klingons. This is what they are. And this is what they've done for endless lifetimes and centuries and eons, etc.